Thank you so much, James. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really, really thrilled. This is such a wonderful opportunity. Folks, I just want to let you know that you can access these presentation slides at this tiny URL. So it's tinyurl.com/gaining clarity 1. We will also put it into the chat so you have access to the slides. This is Gaining Clarity on Your Purpose Through Reflection and Distillation, and I'm Liz Ngonzi. You can connect with me on LinkedIn at Liz Ngonzi as well. I'm so excited to tell you my story and to share this with you. Almost 10 years ago, I had the opportunity for the very first time to share my story. And this was in the form of this TEDx, which you can watch on your own. And it was after I had spent about 3.5 months living at an ashram, which if you're not familiar with an ashram, it's like a spiritual center where people go to kind of rejuvenate, to distill, to just be able to kind of get to a place where they really are kind of like that little happy baby you see there, which is not me. They get back to that essence of who they really are. So I talked about that. Why that was significant, it was the very first time I actually had shared anything about myself. I'd always presented information. I've been an educator for quite a long time. I've been a speaker for a very long time, but it was the first time I was really coming to the core of who I am, what I'd gone through. And it was such a relief to be able to do that because I finally felt comfortable speaking about myself, speaking about my purpose, speaking about something I'd gone through, and all in the effort of helping people to heal and to be able to find their own purpose. So that's where we start from. And I just thought it'd be great to share with you that that's where this all began. Let's talk about how, what I was going through at the point where I decided to make the radical decision to go live in an ashram and to volunteer and live in an environment that's so completely different from the whole life that I had. I had gone through a divorce. I had also lost my father fairly quickly to cancer. And then my company had gone through some serious financial troubles given the whole economic downturn. And that kind of left me in a place where I hit a wall when it came to 2013. I didn't understand what was happening, but because I just worked for sort of 7 years through everything that was going on and not processing through it, I came to a point where I had an amazing year, but for some reason, nothing was resonating. Nothing was really exciting about it anymore. And I knew I needed help. So what I did was I talked to people, I spoke to, my advisors and stuff. I didn't get any answers that made sense. I read books because as you can see, I tend to read a lot. I couldn't get any sense from that. I ate, right? Because that's something to go to when you're trying to deal with stuff. That obviously didn't help. I watched videos. I, did a lot of different things. Didn't get any answers there. Tried to take a vacation. That didn't help. And then I did some prayer. And that was just kind of prayer and meditation to try to get centered around stuff and not listen to other people because everyone was saying, oh, you just need time off and a vacation and it'll be clear. And I was like, no, that's not it. Because there were two things happening inside of me. One was this understanding that gosh, I'd gone through all this stuff and I hadn't actually dealt with it. And I recognized that was hitting me, but I also knew that if I didn't somehow find a way to address all this, I was going to miss an incredible, incredible opportunity in my life. I didn't know what it was, but inside I felt it. And so instead of listening to other people, I just listened to my inside. And the funny thing that happened was I was able to discover Sivananda Ashram Yoga Ranch, which is a place I'd actually spent my 40th birthday visiting a few years prior, so about 3 years prior, and I loved it. I spent a week there, and it was a really incredible experience being in the mountains and being able to be in the fresh air and in a space where people are meditative and they're very reflective. It's a very calming environment and you eat well and so on and so forth. So I felt that was a place I wanted to go when I saw a Facebook post they made advertising an opportunity for people to come and volunteer as Karma Yogis for the summer. Now, it sounded like the craziest thing when I told everybody else, but immediately when I saw the ad, I was like, that's the solution. That's what I need. So I wrote to them and I said, I'd love to do this. These are the reasons why. This is what I could bring to the table. And they said, okay. They wrote back to me and they said, great, you can join us. Just so you know, you're going to have to live in a tent, which I'd never done before. And you have to agree to being a vegetarian. And I'm a big meater, so I had to make that commitment. And then I also had to just commit to just sort of everything else that they require you to do, which is basically giving up everything else. So I moved from a big house that I lived in into this small tent, and assumed this sort of different life for 3.5 months. And I can tell you, it was an incredibly transformative experience that I went through. It wasn't an easy one, but it was really transformative experience. And you can read a little bit about it, that experience, in Yoga Life magazine article that I wrote. So let's talk about what I got from the experience and how how I activated myself through it. This is a photograph of me sitting outside, in one of the dining spaces outside, and I look very calm and very relaxed, and I'm kind of coming to more of who I am. If you'd see me when I arrived, I've looked a complete mess, and I remember someone, one of the senior officials there, saying, when you arrived, you looked like you're very, very stressed out. You were very, very, very tense, and now you see I was very, very relaxed. But there were a lot of different things that I did when I was there. So I had agreed to come and work in the gardens. The ashram grows its own food, or quite a high percentage of its own food, but also has gardens just in general. So I agreed to be part of that. And I got to tell you, at the time, I did not have a green thumb. I was really not inclined, but I felt that if I was going to really go through a transformation, if I was going to become this person that I felt I needed to become for this next part of my life, and also to just really understand who I am, I needed to do the things that were hard. So I took on that challenge. The next thing is I met people and interact with people who I would never otherwise have done so, but they were incredible people for me to be around. They ranged in age, background, as well as, they came from all over the world, as far as Israel. There was one guy from Korea, and really was able to create community with them, and agenda-free kind of relationships and just friendships where we're able to be human beings together. I did some yoga. I wasn't the best at it, but it's not a competition. It's just about being able to understand how to open up your body so that you get everything moving inside, and that gets all the energy flowing. And that helps you to, actually helps me with creativity, and helps just, with your wellness and having that balance. And then a funny thing happened while I had agreed to be Karma Yogi, working in the permaculture program, helping with the gardens and things like that. Someone discovered that I actually write, and then I, do some marketing, and the director asked me to help them create a marketing and fundraising campaign for a solar project that they had been trying to get off the ground for many, many years, and yet didn't have the way to do, how to do so. So I was very reluctant at the very beginning, because I thought, well, I didn't come here to work in that sense. I came to sort of be in a different space. But someone shared with me that the greatest service that you can give is the things that you actually are great at, right? To provide them. So I went ahead and I did that. And so this is actually where we were shooting a video as part of the marketing campaign to get people interested in supporting this solar project that would enable the yoga ranch to become completely energy independent, and even to be able to sell energy to other to other places in the surrounding community as a way to generate income. And then that is the resulting solar project that we were able to create. And it was incredible to see that, in fact, they're able to raise the money. It was about $500,000 raised. And as they sit here today, they're completely energy independent, and the solar project is there and it's running. So it was incredible to be part of something like that. And along the way, I also became a certified permaculture designer, because they gifted me the opportunity to take a permaculture design course. What did I learn from all this? I learned about the importance of balance. I learned about the importance of seeing things as being interconnected, because if you learn about permaculture, it's really looking at people, you're looking at our land, you're looking at animals, and everything is interconnected, and making sure that we're putting everything in balance, and we're living in harmony together. So it was a very, very important thing for me to learn. Yoga is also about union, right? And so those were the really very big themes I learned from that experience doing that. And so after I left 3.5 months later, I was able to sort of emerge anew and had this sort of new energy. And I started sort of interacting with people in different ways. I was able to sort of get a lot of clarity about what was very important to me. So you fast forward about 9 months later, and we look at an opportunity that I received that was a really incredible one, to serve as the United States CEO of an organization called Africa Tikkun. They are based in South Africa, and they have 6 community centers throughout the country, serving thousands of kids, all the way from toddlers to young adults, and living in the most challenging environments, and environments where typically they're probably not going to get out of those environments, and maybe I'm not even going to go to school. Many of them are in child-headed households, very, very, very challenging circumstances. But this organization that at the time had been around for 20 years, and is one of the only 3 organizations that Nelson Mandela endorsed as chief patron, because he believed in the mission so much and what they were doing. They were an organization that were looking to connect with the U.S. market, to be able to obtain supporters from the U.S. and partners from the U.S. And so they asked me to help them build their profile in the U.S. So I'll give you some highlights of the ways that I was able to make an impact that I really firmly believe came from this. I organized our inaugural gala, where we had partners such as Delta Airlines, which is really quite a blessing. You can learn more about that. I also, as a member of the U.S. Speaker Program of the United States Department of State, traveled across South Africa, addressing various groups about leadership and social impact. And of course, in those talks, I spoke about Africa Tikkun, because I was also an ambassador in that role. I enabled Africa Tikkun to be featured in Trade Winds Africa, which was the United States' largest trade mission to Africa, connecting us to U.S. corporations. And that was really part of my mandate, was to find corporations that would be potentially interested in collaborating with our organization. I also created a partnership with Facebook during their International Day of the Girl Child campaign in 2016 that resulted in exponential growth of our Facebook followers from 7,500 to 175,000 in 1 week organically. And that was simply because we had people we chose this frame that people could download, and 3.4 million people downloaded it, and then subsequently clicked through to get to our organization. And that created a global platform for us to be able to bring in different kinds of supporters. And then I also spoke on South Africa Broadcast Corporation News, which is the main news organization in South Africa, about our women's initiatives. And then I also had an opportunity to partner with McCann World Group, which developed this incredible global campaign for us called the Future Leaders Campaign, which has raised over $500,000. So that was really exciting to be part of. Then at the end of the time when I was leaving Africa Tikkun, I received an award as Advocate of the Year during the African Diaspora Awards for my work with Africa Tikkun, and of course around my work on the African continent otherwise, and in the African diaspora. So now that you've learned my story, I'm really glad that you're able to do so. I have a challenge for you. Okay. I would like you to make 3 commitments, if you may. 1 is for you to reflect upon a key light bulb moment in your own life and how it helped you. 2 is I want you to join me for part 2, which is probably about an hour, in the live Q&A session. And in part 2, you're going to see, right now you just learned about my transformation between 2013 and 2018, but now in this part 2, you're going to learn about what happened between 2018 and now, and what I was able to create even greater from the whole process, and how I'm using it to help others. So I definitely want you to join me for part 2, and of course the live Q&A will be able to interact even more. And of course, I'd like you to check out my masterclass that I've developed for you that can help you to distill your own purpose and to go through the similar process that I went through. And it's a masterclass where you'll interact with me directly and be able to really get a lot of great nuggets. And of course, please connect with me on LinkedIn, because I would love to be able to learn more about who you are and see how we might be able to collaborate. So I'm not leaving yet, but I think it's always important to say thank you, as I want to thank James and Alan for making this opportunity available to me. It's so wonderful to be able to join all of you. I'd love to thank my team here, and thank you to all of you wherever you may be, in whichever language is applicable to you. May you be well, and I hope to see you just shortly for my next presentation. Thank you so much.